The showers will arrive.
Right behind me, it's not exactly the most beautiful start to the day, but get used to this because we're going to see a lot of clouds and we're going to see some rain over the next few days, and it may last even well into the weekend. We'll take a look at the maps now and see that there is a lot of cloudiness coming our way. This is a very wide shot, and you can see New York City is near the upper left. Now, there are two areas of moisture coming at us. One is south of us, coming up the east coast, and you'll see in the satellite movie we show you later on, that stuff is just moving straight up the coast. That's what's going to get us today. There's another area of moisture out in the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. That's going to be coming in for tomorrow and Saturday. And in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you can see Hurricane Hugo just entering the picture. It's still 900 miles east of the Caribbean, moving to the west at 17 miles an hour. It's a minimal hurricane, 75-mile-an-hour winds, but it will be approaching the Caribbean, maybe hitting or grazing it by this weekend. We'll be hearing more about Hugo because Hugo will be strengthening. So the moisture's coming toward us, so what's the forecast? Forecast is for rain. Take the umbrellas today. A lot of clouds around and fairly humid. It's 72 degrees and humid right now. Some showers developing from time to time during the day. Not a complete washout by any means. Some people might not even get rained on at all today. High up to 78 degrees. But we're all going to get rained on before tomorrow's out, I'll tell you that. Some rain and drizzle tonight. Low temperatures down in the upper 60s in the city and upper 50s north and west. In the 5-day forecast, whoa, here we go again. Rain tonight, rain tomorrow night, rain into Saturday, maybe even into Sunday if we're unlucky enough. It's not going to be raining all that time, and much of the rain will be on the light side because we don't have a single...
What can I say, except that you're right, Coran. We want this rain to go away. It's not going to until about Sunday, I'm afraid, because this frontal system you see on the weather map tonight has dropped anchor and will just sit there and sort of act as a railroad track for these little low-pressure areas that will zip along the front over the next couple of days. We're going to stay basically right on the borderline between the cool and the warm air. When we mean cool air, it's basically in the 50s and 60s across northern New England, towards the Great Lakes, and it's in the 80s to the 90s across the deep south. So that's it. We have just a continual rain forecast to tell you about. It's not going to rain the entire time. We'll get little breaks. Oops, almost dropped my thing here. We'll get a couple of breaks here and there, and then eventually the rain will start coming back in sort of these bands, maybe some thunderstorms mixed in at times, especially tomorrow. Let's go to the Caribbean because here's Hurricane Hugo, the 6th hurricane of the season, now 725 miles east of the Lesser Antilles, aiming for those islands and eventually maybe for Puerto Rico. It's a strong storm, winds at 100 miles per hour. We'll be watching it for you. Right now in Central Park, our temperature is at 72 degrees. Humidity is high, of course, with all these clouds and rain, 97%. Southeasterly wind, about 9 miles per hour. The pressure, 2992, falling off a bit. 80 and 70 today, and we've had already almost an inch of rain, and we're going to have another probably inch of rain before this is all over. Look at the radar. You can see everything's moving from south to north. The next batch of rain lining up here from Philadelphia and Trenton, and then passing right up through towards southern Connecticut. So, our forecast for New York City and the tri-state area overnight, the rain's going to continue. We'll get down to about 68 in the city with patchy fog to develop too. Upper 50s in the north and west suburbs. Tomorrow, showers, maybe even a few thunderstorms to be mixed in during the day. The high at 77 degrees. If you're looking for improvement on Saturday, you have to look elsewhere because the rain will continue as well. 74, scattered showers on Sunday, but still not a great day, 75. And of course, when everybody's back to work and school, it turns nice. I'll have an update tonight at 10. Maureen Coran.
Depressing. Borough Bay off Tampa stayed offshore for about 10 minutes before lifting up into the clouds. No damage, nobody hurt.
Be a lot of weight because it's got to stick around here. This rain is what I'm talking about, John and Coran. And this rain that is here today is going to be here. Are you ready for this? Tomorrow, Saturday, probably a portion of Sunday as well. We've already had over an inch of rain today, and there's more coming. Let's get to the statistics, and they're kind of depressing. Although the high wasn't too bad today, we got up to 80 degrees, the low at 70, an inch and a quarter in the rain bucket so far, and it's still raining right now. Humidity 72, or excuse me, the temperature 72, humidity socked in there at 100%. Wind out of the southeast at 9, the pressure with this kind of bad weather is on the falling side at 2989. Okay, let's go on and check out our current readings across the area, and you'll find that, again, basically temperatures are almost where they should be for this time of the year. They're in the 70s across a good part of western sections of Nassau County towards the east end of the island, and these little green numbers are the rainfall amounts that you see across the viewing area, anywhere from a half an inch to an inch of rain. Look at the radar goes into motion. You see all the rain moving from south to north, and look what's coming in over my shoulder, another batch of rain from western Pennsylvania. There are two systems that are affecting us, sort of the double jeopardy situation that we're undergoing right now. And you can see on our satellite pictures one system coming right up the coast and the other system coming right across from the west. And the two will basically combine and then stall on top of us over the next couple of days. Thus, it's going to rain. high pressure staying off to the north, and that's going to stick there, and that's also not going to allow this front to, say, push any further to the south. And thus, these little storms that you see right along this front will continue to sort of meander in our direction, and will be one right after the other, starting again tomorrow, another one to come through on Saturday. It's cool to the north in the 60s, and we have 80s to 90s across the southeastern states. Here's the weather map tomorrow. Again, doesn't get much better, folks. Kind of depressing. We're socked into the rain with the front to the north of us, and these little trains of low pressure moving right along. Here's Hugo. It's a big hurricane now. I just got the latest advisory. Didn't have a chance to plot it up for you, but winds are up to 115 miles an hour. So that's a Class 3 hurricane. Dangerous storm, and it's aiming for the central Leeward Islands around Antigua and St. Martin, maybe eventually Puerto Rico. We'll keep you posted. Here's my forecast from New York City and the tri-state area. Overnight, some rain, patchy fog, 68 in the city, upper 50s in the north and west suburbs. Tomorrow, occasional showers, maybe a thunderstorm around in the afternoon, high 77. And for Saturday, umbrella weather continues, more rain, 74 degrees, scattered showers on Sunday, but still, it doesn't look like a nice day at all. 75 for Sunday. You know what happens on Monday when everyone's back to work and back to school. The sun shines again. I'll give you an update tomorrow morning on Hot 97 Radio, and Glenn will be here on First Report.
All right, still ahead, the amazing
Winter's rain. A couple of low-pressure systems are going to ooze up the stationary front for about the next 36 to 48 hours, keeping us intermittently wet. How about 293 at Youngstown, Ohio? Meanwhile, look at this. Record heat in the west. Palm Springs, 106. Bakersfield, California, 105. And a record cold in the Rockies, 18 at Gunnison, Colorado, and 38 above. Of course, it was above at Goodland, Kansas. Now, the jet stream, here's that southwesterly flow. Sure, you know, a front's in the neighborhood, but the reason we're not going to dry out and stay intermittently wet for several days is the southwest flow will keep pumping up pockets of moisture. So we'll have a little respite, and it'll start again, and so on and so forth. Here's the soap water.
Look at a
Central Park, just off Central Park South, and the pond right inside the park is going to be, well, they're going to get in a little addition here. This is Noah's Ark, and because of all this rain that we had this summer, this is Noah's Art, a special exhibit that's going to be set up through the Parks Department and a generous donation, 16 different sculptures of animals, 2 by 2, you know how it works. Well, this is the Ark, and they're getting ready to put this out in the middle of the pond, and we'll be seeing them doing this, maybe capsizing the boat, who knows? Watch it, guys. You never know what's on the bottom of that water. All right, while they're doing that, we'll tell you about the weather. It's 73 degrees now and extremely humid, humidity almost 100%. We'll take a look at the maps and see that there is just moisture all over the place. We have it coming from the south. We had it coming up from the south yesterday. They gave us those tropical downpours in the afternoon. Now, with a weak frontal system about to come through, we'll be getting the moisture in from the west, and that is not quite as torrential, but it's steadier. Also, in the lower right-hand corner of your screen is Hurricane Hugo. And could we dump out of that for a second and come back to our live shot, Paul? The Ark just sank. Well, they have a diver here. He'll have to go in and rescue it. Hey, live television people, you never know what's going to work. Let's go to the forecast now. And we'll see. We're going to have cloudy skies today, humid, some showers. It's not going to rain all day by any stretch of the imagination. It's not as bad as yesterday afternoon and not as bad as tomorrow. And Sunday, you're going to be high of 77. Tonight, light rain and some drizzle. Low temperature 65 in the city, 55 to 60 north and west. And the 5-day forecast, rain tomorrow, maybe heavy at times, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, and into Sunday. An awful weekend weather-wise. Of course, we had 3 great weekends in a row, and it may not even end until Monday, so there could be some flooding problems in the normally flood-prone areas. All right, Plan B over here. In traffic, northbound Van Wyck, disabled vehicle, right lane of the Union Turnpike, westbound LIE slow from Little Neck Parkway to the Corgo. They got it back up. You can see the red things. Those are represent snakes, and water will be coming out of them. This is just one of the 16 or 17 animal sculptures that are going to be opening on Tuesday for anybody to come out here. The signs will be in here on Monday, so they're hard to find right now. There's some eggs back there in the water behind us, representing Noah's Ark. All right, anyway, in the weather, yeah, we can use an ark after this weekend. It is going to be incredibly wet. We'll take a look at the map here, and we do have a frontal system that's about to go through. The humidity is incredibly high now. Now, as the wind shifts into the north very lightly, the frontal just slide to the south, and then another disturbance from Alabama is going to ride right up along that front, and that's going to give us the kind of rains like we had late yesterday, more really heavy rain and causing some flooding in some local areas. So it's not going to be a pretty sight, and it's not going to move very fast. The entire weekend looks pretty wet. I mean, it's not going to rain every second during the weekend, but it's going to rain more times than it's not going to rain. Here's the forecast. Today, it's going to be not raining most of the time, but a few showers around. High temperature 77 degrees and very humid. It's 73 now, so it's not going to go up that much. Tonight, some light rain or drizzle. Again, the front's just going to be south of us. Low temperature 65 in the city, near 60 north and west in the 5-day forecast. A rainy day tomorrow, especially in the afternoon and at night. 72 for the high, very cool. 75 on Sunday with more rain, and then even on Monday, the threat of rain continues. This system just not moving very fast. Now, traffic, still the problem. Westbound LIE slow from Little Neck Parkway to Cross Island. Inbound Gowanus heavy from the Belt merge to the BQE. Southbound BQE is slow into Roosevelt Avenue and slow again into the Gowanus. Northbound BQE heavy from the Gowanus to the Brooklyn Bridge because of a stalled vehicle in the right lane. And the Long Island Railroad scattered 15-minute delays on the Ronkonkoma line. Well, everything's going okay there. That sculpture's worth $25,000, so you don't want to see it at the bottom of the ocean. Anyway, yesterday I had the pleasure of talking to a group here, the American Cancer Society in Long Island, Nassau County, and I got to talk to them about something besides the weather. The lady called me up and said she wanted me to speak. So I said, well, you want me to speak about hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards? What do you want me to talk about? She says, just be funny. Jim, do I look funny to you?
Yes. Well, how did it go? Did you wow them?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Instead of being the after-dinner speaker, I was their during-dinner speaker.
Hurricane Hugo looks like it could cause some problems. Hurricane watches for Antigua, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Martin, and also the British Virgin Islands. Hurricane watches for the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is a powerful storm. 150-mile-per-hour winds moving to the west at 15 miles per hour. Closer to home, we've got a pretty good storm we're watching. It's getting itself together out in the southeast, and that's going to be pushing its way toward us with a warm front, and that's going to be bringing showers.
Almost. I tell you what, Maureen Coran, this storm has exploded this afternoon and is now almost a Category 5 hurricane. That's as high as they get on the scale from 1 to 5, the Saffir-Simpson scale that we call it. Here it is on the satellite movie loop, and you can see it strengthening as it moves westward at about 15 miles per hour. Here are some of the Lesser Antilles in the Caribbean, and that's Puerto Rico, and that storm's going to take a path almost directly across the central Leeward Islands here, and then probably eventually heading towards the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Those islands have a hurricane watch in effect for tomorrow, and we have a hurricane warning up from about St. Lucia northward towards St. Martin. Here's the 6 o'clock coordinates, about 400 miles east-southeast of Guadalupe. Winds at 150 miles an hour, gusting to 185, so this is a dangerous hurricane as it moves off to the west, and it's probably going to strengthen a little bit more over the next couple of days. So we're going to be watching Hugo very, very carefully. Let's look at our own weather. We got very lucky today because this frontal system, which should have been lying right south of the city, moved about another 200 miles to the south. So high pressure moved down from the north, and we had some sunshine, and the rain quit. So that was a very lucky move on our weather map today. But I don't think it's going to last too long. There's a storm down here in Tennessee that will start bringing the moisture back at us. So we'll be dry until about midday tomorrow. Then the rain comes back in. It'll probably stick around a good chunk of the rest of the weekend. Let's go and look at our current numbers. In Central Park, the temperature is 69 degrees. Humidity 71%. The northeasterly wind is in at 12 miles per hour. The pressure 30.06, and it is rising right now. 74 and 67, the high and low for the day. Just a trace of precip. The clouds again are pretty much off to the south. But look at all these bright clouds there in Ohio and Kentucky. Those will be coming right at us. So partly cloudy tonight, patchy fog, 63 in the city, near 50 north and west. A little sun in the morning, and then the rain arrives around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, lasts through the day. Hugo, Hurricane Hugo.
Come up with his name.
Well, it's not me. It's the Hurricane Center and the World Meteorological Organization that does it. But Hugo may sound like a wimpy name. Don't write me letters. I didn't say that, but it is a dangerous hurricane tonight, John and Coran. We're talking about 150-mile-an-hour winds that may strike tomorrow across some of the Caribbean islands, and I'll show that to you in just a minute. Speaking of treasure from earlier, today was a bit of a treasure. It was not supposed to be this nice today, folks. We goofed. 74 and 67, the high and low today. A trace of precip, but we do have some more coming into the forecast by tomorrow. But we lucked out today. 67 and 76 degrees, or 67 degrees and 76% humidity is what I'm trying to tell you. Wind northeast at 10, the pressure 30.11, and it's rising a little bit. And that's one of the reasons why we had nicer weather today, because the high pressure zone to our north built down and pushed everything off to the south, and the sun came out. It's partly cloudy right now, 59 at Poughkeepsie, White Plains 63 degrees, and a little warmer as you get towards Newark. They're 70 now, and in the low 60s in the east end of the island, 57 coming in at Noyak. New Jersey tonight, again, basically in the mid-60s from New Providence to a cooler 59 in Vernon Township. All right, there's the hurricane, and it's moving off to the west at about 15 miles an hour. Watch how strong it gets during the day. The winds at noon were at 125 miles an hour, and again now they're up to 150 miles an hour. The position, 14.9 north, 56.6 west, about 340 miles or so to the east of Guadalupe. Again, the storm continues to move to the west. So we're going to be watching this very closely. Hurricane warnings are up for all of the islands, basically in the Lesser Antilles, and the watches are now up for the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, and we'll be watching it again very, very, very closely. In the short range, we're looking at our forecast here, which shows the clouds that disappeared on top of us today, but look what's waiting in the distance here in Ohio and Kentucky, more cloudiness, and that's a storm system that's developing in eastern Tennessee with the rain spreading up towards West Virginia. Here's the high-pressure zone to the north, and you see it just pushed that front about 200 miles further to the south than it should have today, and we got a nice forecast. But that's not going to be the case tomorrow. As you see our weather map showing the system moving farther to the north and east, the showers will arrive here in the early afternoon and probably not quit until Monday. Partly cloudy, patchy fog overnight, 63 in the city, near 50 north and west. A little bit of sun and dry weather in the morning, and then the rain arriving in the afternoon. The high, 73 degrees, so cooler again tomorrow than it was today. Showers on Sunday with, again, a little bit of sunshine peeking through. Not a great day, maybe not the worst day. So tomorrow's going to be, I think, a lot worse than Sunday will be. And then Monday and Tuesday, when we're all, back to our usual routine, the weather will dry out. Have a nice weekend.
And today was a nice little unexpected reprieve.
It really was. Caught me by surprise.
It sure did. Thank you.
Rain coming up our way. Boston ended up earlier today with almost 2 inches, 320. Oh, and here's the tropical storm out in Octave, the rain to Southern California. Who said it doesn't rain there in the summer? Here's the stuff that's going to get us tomorrow actually beginning late tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night, and then early Sunday morning. We could get some heavy-duty action around here. Here's the satellite photo. Flash flood watches are out. By the way, Hotlanta, GA had 3.5 inches of rain in an hour and a half earlier today. And here is a dangerous guy. Seriously, folks, this is Hugo, moving west at 15 miles an hour, packing 150-mile-an-hour winds. Hurricane warnings are in effect now for the island of St. Martin, and there's a chance, if Hugo were to continue on its present course, it could hit the Florida Keys early next week. We'll be tracking it. All right, here's our outlook now as we head into the weekend. 60 tonight.
To pick the weather pattern up, but it is not working. We do have some more heavy rain in our area. It will continue to dominate tonight, and unfortunately, it looks like there could even be some street flooding. We'll talk more on that in just a second. Here's a look outside. If you stayed in, it was pretty miserable. Cloudy skies throughout the day. There was some on and off rain. The high 65, low 60. Rain less than 1/4 inch. Sunrise tomorrow, 6:38. Sunset, 7:02. Now we've got cloudy skies in Central Park, 62 degrees. The humidity is high. The winds are out of the east-northeast, and the barometer is falling. Now look at the latest radar situation. We still have some light showers persisting across the area, and you'll need that umbrella later on. Here's the showers. You can see to the south of the city, we also have a shower just inland from Cape May and a few showers out in the Atlantic. Later on tonight, though, some heavier rain will start moving in, and we could see as much as an inch of rain accumulate across the area. Here's a look at the satellite picture. Cloudy skies, of course, dominating the area. The reason low pressure sitting right about here. That low will continue to move out of the area, but it will dominate tonight. Tomorrow morning, it starts pushing out. So tomorrow morning, we could have a few brief showers. Tomorrow afternoon, the skies should brighten. I don't think it'll be sunny, but the skies will get brighter and brighter as the day goes on. The forecast for the rest of tonight, expect the rain. The rain will be heavy at times. We could even have some thunderstorms across the area. Temperatures really not changing. They might even go up a degree or two. 63 for Islip, 63 in White Plains, 62 for Poughkeepsie. For tomorrow, we'll call it brightening skies in the afternoon, but generally a mostly cloudy day with a few brief showers here and there. Nothing like later on tonight. The high temperature, quite a bit warmer than it was today, up to 79 degrees here in the city, 77 for White Plains, 78 degrees the afternoon high temperature in Poughkeepsie. The weather does get better, so don't blame me for all of this. On Monday, partly cloudy skies, the temperature at 75 degrees, up to 77 and partly cloudy on Tuesday. On Wednesday, some cloudy skies with rain developing later in 76. Thursday, back to some more rain with a high temperature of 75 degrees. So it looks like the rain continues for us later on tonight, even heavy at times. So we are going to get hit pretty hard with some heavy rain.
We'll look forward to next weekend.
Yeah, why not? Right. It'll probably rain. No.
Well, someplace where the sun is probably shining.
In the Leeward Islands, the satellite image shows Hugo's huge cloud mass, which will bring flooding rains of 5 to 10 inches to the island. Hugo continues to advance on its generally westward track. Hurricane warnings have just been posted for the island of Puerto Rico, as well as the Leeward Islands as far south as Martinique. Now, time-lapse over the past 20 hours shows the storm center whirling with those winds, as you said, Maria, of 140 miles an hour. That puts Hugo as a dangerous Category 4 storm, and winds this strong will create a dangerous storm surge tide of 8 to 12 feet. Now, the most dangerous region, again, near the eye of the storm itself, about 80 miles across and headed right towards Guadalupe tonight. And if it continues on this track, it will threaten Puerto Rico by late tomorrow or on Monday.
Again, throughout the day in San Juan, it has been business as usual. Only a few stores bothered putting up storm shutters. The vast majority of merchants seem willing to take their chances. But some residents are concerned. Grocery shelves were beginning to empty. Bottled water is in great demand, and emergency food supplies are going quickly.
Hope it doesn't come.
Tourists are packing San Juan's International Airport, trying to catch flights off the island. Most of them having to fly standby because there are too few flights and too many people.
I'm leaving because of the storm. We are supposed to attend a convention in Antigua starting today, and they tell us 3 days before we can get to Antigua. We're going back to New York.
Hopefully we can get out, get back home. Keep our fingers crossed.
But among residents here, there is a sense of apathy, and that has officials of the National Weather Service concerned. The last major storm to hit here was in 1956, and that was Hurricane Betsy. The major difference is that that was a minimal hurricane with winds of only 80 miles an hour. Even so, 16 people lost their lives, and Betsy caused an estimated $40 million in property damage. Current projections are for Hugo to strike here, packing winds of at least 130 miles an hour. The fear is that for an unprepared Puerto Rico, the toll in lives and property will be devastating. Jan Fisher for NBC News in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
U.S. forecasters have classified Hugo as an extremely dangerous storm with the potential for destruction. Joining us now is the director of the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Bob Sheets. And Mr. Sheets, is there a threat to the U.S. mainland, and if so, when might it hit?
Well, right now, the only threat is, of course, the Leeward Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico sometime tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. It's entering the Leeward Islands right now. The potential threat for the U.S. will have to look maybe 2 to 3 days into the future.
Very briefly, any chance that it could be upgraded to a 5?
Possible. It was near a 5 yesterday. It weakened a little bit today and strengthened a little bit in the last hour or two, and we'll look at that a little bit later with Air Force reconnaissance.
Yes, here's the very latest picture we have as of 9 o'clock this evening. There's the eye showing up very well right now. It's about 75 miles on the 9 o'clock advisory, east-southeast of Guadalupe here, moving to the west-northwest at about 12 miles per hour. It's not as intense as Gilbert was, although at the same stage in a similar position, it's stronger than Gilbert was. Kind of confusing. Gilbert reached its maximum intensity when it was between Jamaica and the Yucatan Peninsula. Highest winds 140 miles an hour in a small area near the eye. Fluctuation in pressure, at last check, if you have a home barometer, 27.79. Anyway, the estimated track will take it very near San Juan between midnight tomorrow night and daybreak Monday morning. Thereafter, it could head toward the Bahamas, but it looks very ominous for the East Coast, middle and later part next week. We'll have more on that a little bit later on the main weather report, a little bit later in the broadcast. Here's Barbara.
When do you think we might know?
Well, you mean know whether or not it'll be a definite or
factor in our weather here?
Well, probably not for a couple of days. We have several days to watch it. But I would say the middle part of the upcoming week, maybe the late part of the work week, is the time to watch for us. The perhaps biggest threat we've seen since Gloria is what I was saying, 4 years ago. The uprair winds are such that the storm will be moving northward or north-northwestward, and if it gets close enough to the coast on that path, we could have some problems here. But let's talk about our own local weather right now. After a high of 65 and 60 and 0.18 of an inch of rain, it is still pretty chilly here, but it's much warmer, as you'll see in a second, in southern Jersey. Right now, 64, a northeast wind and a falling barometer. The current temperatures show readings of 60 to 65 throughout most of the area right now across Connecticut, Long Island, but look down across Ocean County near Seaside Park and specifically down across Millville, Atlantic City. Winds are out of the south. Lots of showers and storms here. Look at the radar filled with some moderate to heavy rains moving north-northeastward. Much of that may pass by to the west of the city, but I think most of this heavy rain will be passing over at least parts of the area as it shifts away. But notice not much back here. We have some good news, some clearing weather, at least some partial clearing for tomorrow. Hugo is at 16.1 north, 60.4 west. That's 75 miles east-southeast of Guadalupe, moving west-northwest at 12 with 140-mile-an-hour winds. Pressure's been fluctuating. It's back up to 943 millibars, or about 27.84. A threat to Puerto Rico tomorrow night and Monday, and maybe turning northward to affect us the middle and latter part of the week. Showers and thunder, some of it heavy, moving out later. Steady temps with low clouds and patchy fog. Tomorrow, look for a better day. Temperatures could be running near 80 degrees, and the early part of next week looks pretty good, and then we have to watch the middle and latter part of the week ahead. Here is Barbara and Steve.
Okay, we'll be keeping our eyes open, Alan.
Still at 140 miles per hour. What kind of damage could it do? How widespread would it be?
Well, that was what it hit Guadalupe with, and we had reports of several thousand homeless down there. There are unconfirmed reports of 3 dead and perhaps more than that. The tower was knocked out at the airport, so certainly we would see that in Puerto Rico. Now, one of the problems in Puerto Rico is it's a little more hilly, and so we're going to have those flash floods and mudslides, so I would expect more damage in Puerto Rico than in Guadalupe.
At those awesome speeds, could we get something of a tidal wave effect as the waves pound the shore?
We'll certainly have that impact right along the coast there of maybe 8 feet rises in the water and big waves on top of that. But because the land rises fairly quickly and it's an island, the water will pass around it. So not the big storm surges that we see on the east coast of the United States.
And right now, is it dead-headed for Puerto Rico?
Very much so. It's been on a west-northwest course. You see the eye of the hurricane there, right near St. Croix here in the next few hours, and then certainly over Puerto Rico late tonight, early tomorrow morning.
Earlier, you folks called this an extremely dangerous storm. Is there any reason to change that?
Not at all. 140-mile-per-hour winds is a lot of wind, and you can see the white area here. That's also heavy rain, and that's a real problem in those islands.
So even though it hit Guadalupe, it didn't slow down?
No, it didn't slow down at all. It's been moving across there. Of course, Guadalupe is quite small relative to this hurricane here. Puerto Rico is a little bit larger and will have a little bit of impact on it, but the center will probably jog across the island and come out here and continue to maintain its strength.
The way you say that gives me the feeling, anyway, that there isn't much hope that it could veer off course.
It might go slightly south of Puerto Rico, but normally what happens is the eye gets close, you get all that heating over the island, it sort of jogs in and then jogs toward the west.
So anyone on Puerto Rico right now had better assume they're going to get hit by Hurricane Hugo.
Certainly the core of that hurricane is going to be passing over St. Croix in the next few hours and get the full force of the storm, and we expect that'll happen in Puerto Rico also.
Bob Sheets at the Hurricane Center. Rainfall amounts of 5 to 10 inches can be expected in the path of the hurricane, and we'll have the latest...
5 miles east-southeast of Puerto Rico, moving west-northwest at 12 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds 140 miles per hour. You can see right now Puerto Rico starting to get the clouds and some showers from Hugo, right in line the Dominican Republic, and after that Haiti. If you want to see a real long-range forecast on Hugo, stress that this is a long-range forecast. And right now it appears that Hugo will take a more northerly turn on Tuesday or Wednesday, bringing it over the Bahamas. By Thursday, Hugo is expected to come ashore along the coastline of northern Florida, Georgia, or South Carolina. On Thursday, we should even see some clouds from Hugo. This will be the remnants. And on Friday, look for some more rain from Hugo. Forecast immediately, though, low pressure moving out into the Atlantic. Behind it, high pressure is building. So tomorrow will, of course, be much better than today. We'll have partly cloudy skies, not too bad. Temperatures rather nice in the mid-70s as well. Tonight's forecast, low 63 in the city. Wednesday, it looks pretty good. Partly sunny skies, high of 76 and 77 degrees. As Hugo heads towards us, right now it looks like cloudy skies on Thursday and some rain. On Friday, I want to stress that it will just be the remnants of Hugo. And, of course, as soon as Hugo hits land, he will get very, very weak, so we'll probably just get the clouds and showers, and that is a very, very long-range forecast, of course.
But you'll let us know.
I certainly
What
will.
about November 18th?
Perhaps some influence from Hispaniola. But we're forecasting the storm to be out here north in the extreme southeast part of the Bahamas in about 2 to 3 days. From there, indeed, there is some potential for the east coast, but we don't know where at this stage.
Is the storm already making a slight deviation one way or the other, or is it just going straight ahead?
It's been going very steady at west-northwest at 10 knots. There will be some jogging. It will have some influence on it here in Puerto Rico, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the eye sort of jog around there. And again, Hispaniola could have some influence on it also.
Of course, you're not looking just at the storm on your radar screen there. You're looking at what's happened across the United States itself, other influences which will direct the storm one way or the other. What's the most important weather condition right now which could influence its final destination?
We have what's called the Big Bermuda High that sets up here, and right now it's building towards the west, and that's bad news because it continues to move this storm towards the west-northwest. We have the trough of low pressure, the frontal zone that came through Washington and New York and so on, right here. We're expecting that to pull out another high-pressure area here. So all these things are taking place and indeed could turn the storm or continue west.
Finally, any chance the storm will just break up and stop and not hurt anyone?
Not likely at this stage. It's a very large, powerful hurricane at this stage, and so it's unlikely that it will just sit there and break up.
Bob Sheets, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Other news. Hurricane Hugo has arrived in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico may feel its fury at daybreak. Hugo is the Eastern Caribbean's most powerful storm in a decade. It has already wreaked havoc in the Leeward Islands, with Guadeloupe getting the brunt of it. 140-mile-an-hour winds swept through, leaving 5 dead, 40 injured, and at least 4,000 homeless. An amateur radio operator spoke with people in Guadeloupe.
The airport is non-operational. There's been a request to Paris for blankets, tents, and emergency supplies. That they have suffered extensive crop damage, estimated at 90%. There are some mudslides, roads blocked, and damage to public utilities.
While one area is left in ruins, Puerto Rico is getting ready for what could be the worst hurricane to hit there in 60 years. One man has already died electrocuted as he was removing his TV antenna in preparation for the storm. Some people, including children, were crying, fearful of what could happen in their area.
And if it does hit us, and we think it will, probably just wipe us off the map.
Hurricane Hugo is classified as a Category 4 hurricane, causing extreme damage. But forecasters now say it borders on becoming a Category 5 storm, causing catastrophic damage. Steve.
Well, Rosanna, the question on everyone's minds, of course, once Hugo's finished with the Caribbean, Alan Casper, what about the rest of us?
Well, I'll tell you what, things obviously can change, but from the information I've seen, some part of the East Coast, especially the Middle and South Atlantic coast, almost looks like a lock for this to make landfall late this week. Let's take a look at the very latest picture and the coordinates we should have, hopefully, in the upper right-hand corner. This is as of 10:30, 17.4 north, 64.5 west. Slowed down some during the evening, west-northwest at 9. You can see the eye very clearly. 100-mile-an-hour winds are being experienced right now at St. Thomas and at St. Croix, at least fringe gales in the eastern part of Puerto Rico. The eye is going to pass over or very close to San Juan as it moves very slowly west-northwest, probably over the eastern part of the island late tonight or perhaps during the morning hours after sunrise tomorrow. Upper-level conditions, though, are changing along the southeast and middle, actually along the whole east coast, and that could make a real problem late this week. We'll talk more about the hurricane and our...
But the 80-mile-an-hour winds continue to pummel the popular vacation spot. We called the Buccaneer Hotel. A number of New Yorkers are vacationing there, and we spoke with its operations manager, Bill Watkins.
Now, what is your situation presently at this moment?
Well, the storm seems to be going a little bit farther south of us now. It's expected to be 40 miles south of St. Croix at 10 o'clock. But we're still going to have 75, 80-mile-an-hour winds with gusts up to 100.
How many people are in the hotel at this time?
We have about 80 here now, 70, 75 guests, and then the remainder staff.
How are they coping?
Oh, things are going on real well. We're in the lobby area of the hotel, which has been here for 200 years, and it's been secured, and so we're well protected from the storm, and nobody's in any danger. We have our own generating plants. Everybody has power. We just had a good meal, and now everybody's sitting around kind of to pass the time away until the major part of the storm gets farther away.
Bob Reef from Port Jefferson, Long Island, is living on the island while taking part in a hotel management program.
I've never experienced anything like this before. I am a little bit concerned that my apartment is a little bit underwater right now, and I haven't been able to get back to my place.
It looks like St. Croix will escape the full brunt of Hurricane Hugo as the remainder of the Caribbean watches and the storm heads for Puerto Rico. Howard Thompson, News 4, New York.
And we're told that one man in Puerto Rico died while preparing for the storm. He accidentally touched a power line while removing a TV antenna from his roof. Well,
and in fact, it's going to...
How do people feel right now?
Well, Ralph, earlier in the day and yesterday, people weren't really all that upset or worried about Hugo coming this way. This island has never really faced a major hurricane in the last 50 or 60 years. Most of the people who live here don't remember it. But now they're beginning to take note. They're evacuating. There's some 3,500 people here in San Juan that have been evacuated from the low-lying areas. They're in evacuation shelters. The streets are deserted. The hotels have basically closed down. The governor has called for the casinos to be closed, and it's very, very quiet here. I think there is a certain amount of fear.
As for the tourists, and many of them, I imagine, are huddled now in the high-rise hotels?
Most of them that are remaining are huddled in the high-rise hotels. It's kind of an unusual sight. Earlier in the day, San Juan's international airport, there were wide-bodied jets moving people out of here hourly. L-1011s, DC-10s, 747s, the kinds of airplanes that normally do not stop here at this airport. But the airlines were having to bring larger jets in so that they could get more people out.
Now, we learned from the Hurricane Center that the damage could be as much as 50 miles wide. That takes in most of the island, correct?
It certainly does. The island is only 25 to 35 miles wide. It's 125 miles long, approximately. That hurricane, when it comes through here, if it hits dead center and sets on the island for about 8 to 9 hours, you can imagine what kind of destruction that it's going to cause.
All right, Jan, thank you, and we'll stay in touch with you.
We had some breaks of sun, but all in all, the clouds dominated a little bit more than we thought. Lots to tell you about, so let's get right to it by looking at what's going on outside right now and taking a peek at the high and low for the day. 75 was your high. The low was 63, excuse me, and 68 is where we are right now, a rising barometer west at 3. Full satellite view reveals on the northeast. You can see where the upper-level winds are coming out of the south-southwest. That's signs of things to come for portions of the east coast later in the week. High pressure is building way north in eastern Canada, and our winds are going to be strengthening along coastal communities, not due to the hurricane, but to a strong area of high pressure, which will move east to the Canadian Maritimes. You can see the upper air flow like so. A low-pressure system aloft is going to be carved out over Georgia, and that will be the steering mechanism in one form or another that will affect the direct movement of Hurricane Hugo a couple of days down the road. At 10:30 p.m., the coordinate positions are 17.4 north, 64.5 west, highest winds 140 miles an hour. If you're just joining us, 100-mile-an-hour sustained winds at St. Thomas and St. Croix right now. The eye of the hurricane moving west-northwest at 9 will pass over the eastern end of the island very near San Juan. Considering the slower speed, maybe not till tomorrow morning. Then it'll turn west-north, continue west-northwest. How far left it gets before it probably turns more northwest to north will be the key. If it gets way over here in the Bahamas, the western Bahamas, and then turns west-north or northwest to north, this is the area to watch. Further to the right, we have more problems. Some clouds, maybe some clearing, comfortable, low 60s in the city, 50s north and west. Tomorrow, kind of a mixed bag, breezy eventually along the coast, temperatures in the lower 70s. In the extended forecast, clouds will win out, windy along the shore, damp, and the threat of rain will be increasing throughout the week. Check with Hurricane Schwartz tomorrow morning, and
it's expected to arrive sometime tonight and last through late tomorrow, and you may be able to hear behind me the urgent weather bulletins that have replaced regular programming on some radio and TV stations here, telling us basically that heavy rains have already hit the outlying Puerto Rican island of Vieques and that Hugo is lumbering our way. Winds and surf are definitely picking up in the last few minutes here in San Juan, and it's kind of a horror movie feel as we all wait for something that could really be devastating, but we can do nothing about it.
The waves kept rising. The wind stirred the palms with a growing urgency. The National Guard roused itself to action, and Hurricane Hugo continued its seemingly unwavering march on Puerto Rico. Tourists, many from New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, continue to scramble out of Hugo's way. Some kind of melancholy to leave just when all the excitement was beginning.
The hotel asked us to leave. They were afraid that they didn't want to be responsible for us. And we wanted to stay because although it's a dangerous hurricane, and I feel sorry for the people in Puerto Rico, I thought it must have been something very dramatic and very magnificent.
Concerned that we should be home, watching it on television and saying, gee, we didn't stay there to wait.
Puerto Rico's most famous land, and probably its most treasured, is its coastline, dotted with old fortresses and modern hotels. And it is this coastline that may well be hit the hardest. Experts say the most dangerous part of any hurricane is its storm surge, a sweep of water sometimes 50 miles wide with waves sometimes 10 feet above normal or more that hits the coastline and accompanied by heavy rains causes tremendous flooding. Like many of the families that live right here at the water's edge, the Rosario and Caballero families, which jointly own this little hamburger stand here in San Juan, are boarding up their store and packing up to head inland to Puerto Rico, where they feel safe.
I'm going to Bayamon for my sister's house because my family is all someone not like for huracán because I feel it.
You don't want to die in a...
Yeah.
Puede haber unas pérdidas de los $200,000.
Sí, esto está destruido.
Sí, esto está destruido.
Store owner Alejandro Trillo hopes he does not lose his life's investment, the $200,000 equity in his San Juan showroom. Fears of loss are shared by almost each of Puerto Rico's 3.5 million inhabitants. At the Puerto Rico base of the National Weather Center, experts say there may be no place to hide, inland or coastal. Meteorologists believe Hugo's path will cut a diagonal swath across Puerto Rico's midsection, entering on the southeast tip, leaving on the northwest. Hugo travels with a 50-mile radius of destruction, which just about covers an island that's only about 35 miles wide and 110 miles long.
It looks like it's going to be very relevant to Hurricane Felipe that we had in September of 1928, which was devastating to the island at that time.
So, historic proportions.
One of the best.
Or the worst.
That's correct.
And so the people of Puerto Rico, more than 3.5 million inhabitants, are praying that what has been built up here over centuries is not devastated in one swift visit by an angry tourist named Hugo. In San Juan, Jane Velez-Mitchell.
Latest on Hugo, now located about 130 miles east-southeast of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Winds remain at 140, gusting to 160, but Hugo has slowed down a little bit. That means it looks like Hugo will strike Puerto Rico, probably somewhere on the eastern side near San Juan by daybreak tomorrow morning, and then just rake that island during the day as it moves slowly east to west. A devastating blow for Puerto Rico. We'll have more details a little bit later on in this broadcast, plus the local forecast as well.
In its fullest dimension, what we're dealing with is miseducation. And because you do not have the truth of the African presence, of the Latin presence, of the Asian presence as a part of the socialization of all of our youngsters, you have an institutionalized white supremacy.
For example, we're taught that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, but nothing about Lewis Latimer, inventor of the incandescent filament that made the bulb burn for hundreds of hours. Every day we use African-American inventions, the automatic traffic light, the turn signal on cars, air brakes on trains. The lubricating process that revolutionized industry and is still used to keep machines oiled while they work was developed by Elijah McCoy, son of runaway slaves. The term, the real McCoy, became a part of our language, but McCoy's contribution is ignored by history books.
Teachers cannot teach what they do not know. They do not have an opportunity to learn about the contributions of ethnic minorities because this information is not contained in their material. So you have what is set up as a vicious cycle.
The teaching material is available from coloring and comic books to college textbooks, but they're not used in schools. Dr. Jeffries is one of 4 consultants now helping New York rewrite its public school curriculum to include some of the lost history. This report to the State Education Commissioner, A Curriculum of Inclusion, was released publicly 2 weeks ago.
Our contribution has been enormous, but it's been kept hidden from us, and we need it to nurture us, and white folks need it in order to have a fuller understanding of our enormous contribution.
As New York in Black and White continues this week, we'll also look at how crime and media affect our views of racial relations. And at the end, we'll ask...
Courtesy of Dwight Brugo, it's 84% humidity, winds west to 3. We have pressure on the rise, and we have partly cloudy skies, and we have one dangerous hurricane bearing down on Puerto Rico right now, about 130 miles east-southeast of San Juan. We'll hit that island tomorrow morning, rake it during the day, and then move towards the Bahamas, probably be in the Bahamas by Tuesday or Wednesday, and approach the southeast coast on Thursday or Friday. For us, latest temperatures at this hour, temperatures mainly in the low to mid-60s. Fog will be the main problem overnight, and tomorrow morning for your commute. The front went through today. That allowed for a little sunshine. Big high-pressure cell will be in control for tomorrow, so a mix of clouds and sunshine after early morning fog. Temperatures much like today in the mid-70s. And I'll be back. From Hurricane Schwartz, Brooklyn Bridge. Hurricane.
All right, thanks, Steve. It's a pretty cool start to the day, and we can also see some low-level clouds coming in. That's because the winds are turning around already into the northeast. We're going to have easterly winds just about all week here. It's going to be very cool, and it's going to be very cloudy, and it's going to be pretty damp, especially the second half of the week, maybe as early as tomorrow, and some of it may be related to Hurricane Hugo. We'll take a look at the maps now, and we'll see that we're not under the influence of that yet, and the coordinates of Hugo and new tropical storm Iris are there on the map. Now, Iris is southeast of Hugo, pretty close to Hugo, actually, with 50-mile-an-hour winds, and that's increasing. Hugo is slamming into Puerto Rico as we speak, kind of grazing the southeastern tip. Of course, a hurricane is not a point, so it's not completely dependent on where the eye is. It's a 50-mile area or so. But there's moisture up and down the east coast, and Hugo is going to continue moving to the west-northwest. Now, we'll show you that on our hurricane tracking chart right out here live on the Brooklyn Bridge. People are walking by seeing what's going to happen, all right? Hugo in the yellow dots right across Guadalupe, across St. Croix earlier this morning, now just about on top of St. Thomas and the eastern tip of Puerto Rico. It's going to continue moving to the west-northwest, and these yellow dots are the plots for the 48 and 72-hour position. So in the central Bahamas by about Wednesday, there's going to be a big area of high pressure up to the north, giving us our easterly winds that's going to steer Hugo right into the southeast coast. That's the way it looks right now. It looks like there's an excellent chance that Hugo is going to hit the United States mainland. It's got 140-mile-an-hour winds, and at least at the moment, it's not decreasing. If it does get closer to the Dominican Republic, it may decrease some, but it'll still be a hurricane when it hits. All right, now we're going to go to the forecast, and we will see that we're going to have partly cloudy skies today, a little bit of sunshine here, but there's a fair amount of these low clouds. And we're going to see lots of clouds this week. The easterly winds just do not go away. Tomorrow, the possibility of some light rain or drizzle coming in with the easterly winds, 70 degrees for the high temperature. And the rest of the week, the combination of the moisture along the coast and the track of Hugo and the high pressure to our north, we're just going to get strong easterly winds. We're going to have some high tides along the Jersey shore, and it's going to be a messy week, not only for us, but especially for the southeast once we get by Puerto Rico. Now, in traffic, it's a little messy here. Outbound Lincoln Tunnel is now open, but there's a 35 to 40-minute delay there. New Jersey, westbound Route 78 jammed for a mile approaching Route 287, an overturned truck. Northbound BQE bumper to bumper from the Gowanus to Atlantic Avenue, disabled truck in the center lane.
This is Fox News at 7.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maury Povich. There is death and destruction in the Caribbean tonight. Hurricane Hugo, 125-mile-an-hour winds, ripping through the Virgin Islands, Guadalupe, and now its latest victim, Puerto Rico. Hugo is responsible for at least 14 deaths. That toll likely to rise. Fox News reporter Christopher Jones has a look at the destruction left by Hugo, and people in New York are worried about friends and loved ones in the eye of the storm.
It's the most fearsome hurricane in the Caribbean in 10 years. Hurricane Hugo has devastated several islands, including the Virgin Islands, and has ripped into Puerto Rico with undiminished fury, leaving thousands homeless and fears that scores more may be dead. Hugo hit the eastern tip of Puerto Rico with a 125-mile-an-hour punch of winds, accompanied by torrential rains and a tidal surge of at least 6 feet, quickly knocking out all power on the island. Sunday, the hurricane ripped through the U.S. and British Virgin Islands with 100-mile-an-hour winds and rains that caused severe flooding and destroyed scores of homes. On the French Caribbean island of Guadalupe, 5 people were reported killed and at least 80 were injured. Boats were washed up in the middle of the island, roofs torn off of buildings, and more than 10,000 made homeless by the vicious storm. The failure of electric power has left communications with the islands almost non-existent. And the lack of news has left many people with loved ones in the Caribbean close to despair. Ana Muñez is one who is very concerned.
I mean, it's my homeland, and it's my people, and you don't know, and you're waiting anxiously, even if you don't know half of the people there, but you want to know that everything is okay, and you know it's not going to be okay.
They're trying to open the gates of the dam, but there's no electricity and they can't do it manually. They're afraid that the dam may break and flood the town of Trujillo Alto.
At the United Nations, a dedicated group of volunteers is trying to fill the information void. The UN Amateur Radio Club has been maintaining radio contact with the island and is trying to pass messages through as they are received. But in view of the circumstances, all the information is less than precise. But one thing is certain, help is needed. And if you would like to help, you can contact the Red Cross at 1-800-453-9000. The main task facing the United Nations Radio Club and other ham operations around the country is to get emergency word through. But once this storm has passed, and if you still have no word about loved ones in Puerto Rico or the Caribbean, you can contact the United Nations Radio Club for assistance. Christopher Jones, Fox News, Channel 5.
And Nick has been tracking this monster storm, Hurricane Hugo, and has more on where it might hit next. Nick?
Well, Cora, in predicting the future tracks of hurricanes, again, we have to take in mind that a lot of things can happen to storms as they begin to move through, let's say, the tropical waters and get affected by upper air weather patterns. And in this particular case, Hugo's been moving pretty much now on a steady northwesterly course, thus taking it just north of Puerto Rico, the center of the storm, that is, and then it should just pass by north of Hispaniola. Likely target now probably going to be into the Bahamas and maybe somewhere eventually along the southeast coast of the United States. But again, that's a long way off, and we can't really speculate too certain at this present time. 19.5 north, 67.0 west, the present position. Again, that's just the point of the center of the storm. 90 miles northwest of San Juan. Good news, the storm has weakened to 115 miles an hour, and it may not be regaining that intensity of 140 miles an hour it had earlier. Again, there's the proximity to the southeast coast. We'll have to see what's going to happen. I'll bring you more on that and the nation's weather and our own forecast coming up a little bit later on. Maury?
All right, Nick, see you a little later.
That's right.
on.
It's bad enough to have one storm. We have Iris that's also out there. But look at this satellite animation that goes back 24 hours. You watch it come right across Puerto Rico and moving now towards the Bahamas. That seems to be the next area to be threatened by the storm, let's say directly threatened by the storm, and then eventually maybe the southeast coast of the United States. Let's go to our graphics here. You can see Hugo at 19.5 north, 67.0 west, a hurricane with 115 miles an hour winds, so it's lost some of its punch, and it may not regain that 140 mile an hour winds, but that's not to say that that's still not a dangerous storm. And there's Iris right behind it with 50 mile an hour winds. We'll watch them both closely for you. Our own weather is going to be dominated by easterly winds for the next 2 days. That means clouds, maybe a little drizzle, maybe a few sprinkles here and there. And then we'll start drying out as big high pressure builds back down from Canada. And that may also keep Hugo off to the south of us and actually keep us dry by the end of the week. Satellite movie loop, there go the clouds, basically moving up along the east coast. The clearing skies are just to the west, and again, it may take a couple of days before they start getting in here. Radar's not showing anything now, just a few light showers out in Pennsylvania. So the forecast, and overnight, drizzle, cool, 50 in the city, or 60 in the city, 50s north and west. Tomorrow, cloudy, a little light rain or drizzle, and the high of 71 degrees.
After a deadly encounter with a killer hurricane, Hugo. The worst storm to hit there in more than 30 years. At least 14 people are dead. Thousands throughout the Caribbean lost their homes. And Hugo's not letting up. It's headed out for the Bahamas and the Dominican Republic. Brian Cabell of our sister station, WSVN in Miami, reports.
The hurricane-force winds slammed into San Juan early this morning and quickly turned the streets into a corridor of debris. Trees were uprooted throughout the city, onto stores, onto cars. This tree had a trunk 6 feet wide. Glass shattered in stores downtown. Shacks along the coast struggled not to be blown away. Sheets of rain made driving almost impossible on the empty, ravaged streets. A few residents huddled by their doors just to glance at the devastation outside. Others simply took shelter wherever they could find it. But otherwise, hardly a soul was on the street. There was no reason to be. And sharp pieces of flying sheet metal gave you every reason to be inside. Telephone and electrical wires were down. All power on the island of 3 million people had been shut off. Dozens of government shelters open to residents in coastal areas where flooding was expected. The night had not been a quiet or comfortable one. Still, it was an improvement over this, the fury of Hugo unleashed on this tropical paradise. Brian Cabell, Channel 7 News, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
And officials in Puerto Rico tell us the phones will probably be working tomorrow. Corinne?
And John, the Dominican Republic, which shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti, is Hugo's next target. Civil defense authorities mobilized their people this afternoon while residents stocked up on supplies. The 4 airports were shut down. And as our Jeff Weiser tells us tonight, now it's a time for relatives in our area to wait and hope for the best until communications with the Caribbean are restored.
The available pictures from Puerto Rico are frightening, and it is the fear of the unknown that has so many area residents concerned. And there are many thousands of New York area residents with family and friends living in Puerto Rico.
I have family. I have elderly parents in Puerto Rico with whom I'm not in communications with. There are a lot of people, and I know that we're having this problem, but I recommend that they just hang in there and wait and pray. And hopefully, from what I hear, everyone's damage has been the greatest loss right now. Loss of life has been minimal, thank God. But I think right now they should just maintain a vigil and wait until tomorrow.
Many gathered tonight at houses of worship like the Church of the Holy Agony in East Harlem to sing prayers for their loved ones. Earlier in the day, other churches were holding special services for Puerto Rican storm victims.
We prayed during the Mass for the people of the hurricane, those who have lost their lives, those who are suffering damage, and those who have lost a lot of property and can't do anything about it. We have no place to go now.
Puerto Rican officials are trying to make some sense of a horrible storm with a devastating potential.
And you must remember that the last hurricane that hit Puerto Rico was in 1966. And since then, many condominiums have been built, and they haven't been tested.
Tonight, phones were ringing quite steadily at the Puerto Rican Commonwealth office in Manhattan, where officials are issuing a plea that New Yorkers with relatives in Puerto Rico be calm because loss of life is said to be quite low. But spokeswoman Betty Arce says there is a need for donations of money to Puerto Rico.
What the Red Cross has recommended is that we raise money. More than anything else is what we're going to need.
At this point, it appears that there's quite a bit of property damage. Homes and roads are destroyed. And if you'd like to donate money, you can do so at any branch of the Banco Popular or call 473-4788 for information on donating money to storm-ravaged Puerto Rico. Jeff Weiser, Fox News, Channel 5.
All right, our meteorologist Nick Gregory has been tracking the storm, watching the forecasts on where it might hit our coast. Nick?
Well, John and Corinne, when we talk about hurricane forecasting again, we talk about an uncertainty that exists, especially when we get beyond 48 hours into the future. And the 72-hour forecast positions that we base some of our forecasts on have been known to be up to 400 miles in error, just to give you an idea of how uncertain the future of a hurricane can really be. Now, in this particular case, watch how the hurricane's been moving pretty much on a steady northwesterly course, west-northwest northwesterly course as the eyes sort of wobbled off the east coast of Puerto Rico. If that trend continues, we expect it to see a path right along towards the eastern Bahamas, let's say, which will be good news for the Dominican Republic because they'll be spared the main brunt of this storm, but bad news for the Bahamas. And then the question is, where does it hit the southeast coast? And will it be anywhere from Florida on up into the Carolinas? Again, a little too early to call, but that's the area that I would be watching right now. Here's the latest coordinates as of 10:30 tonight. The storm is about 125 miles northwest of San Juan at 20.1 north, 67.2 west. It's weakened a bit. Now, we told you at 7 it was weakening a little bit. And you can see by the satellite picture it's weakened a bit more. It's still dangerous at 110 miles an hour, but it's not the 140-mile-an-hour storm that it was recently. It's still moving off to the northwest at 12, and it may begin to strengthen a little bit tomorrow. We'll have to see if that again will be the case. Sometimes when they come out on the other side of those islands, they tend maybe to not strengthen too much. I'll bring you another update on the storm.
You were with your high school reunion, right?
Well, something to that effect, yes.
And you guaranteed them good weather?
And it rained.
And it rained? You took off like a shot, I understand.
Yeah. Faster than my golf game, that's for sure.
All right.
Yes,
well, at least you know enough to leave when your prediction is not exactly...
That's right. So if you see me vanish before the end of this program, you know that something's going wrong in my prediction again. But I think that we've got no real big problems, John and Corinne, to worry about the next couple of days. It's going to be cloudy. I can almost guarantee you that the next couple of days. Just a few periods of rainfall that we'll be having to deal with. The big story, of course, tonight continues to be the hurricane. I'll get into that in just a minute. Let's talk about today. Didn't rain really in the city, but it did in some surrounding areas. So that's the problem. It doesn't rain everywhere, so it just happened to be raining where I was.
Please.
Okay, so it's a poor excuse, but it sounded good. 68 and 63 today. Temperature really didn't go very far. No rainfall again in the city, but it did in some parts of our viewing area. 64 now. Humidity up there, 78%. Northeasterly wind at 13, and the pressure 30.29. That's pretty high, and it's rising up just a little bit right now. Skies are cloudy, though. Temperatures ranging from 62 in the Hamptons to mid-70s around the city itself. 61 at Poughkeepsie. Monticello, they've gone to bed at the airport, so the observations are not coming in tonight. They're closed. 64 Trenton and 65 in Philadelphia. My mistake. I wanted to show you the satellite loop of Hugo, first of all, before we get to these coordinates. Again, these are the 10:30 positions that we'll talk about in just a minute. Look at the loop here. This goes back about 24 hours, and you can see it coming from almost off of Guadalupe, right across the northeast coast of Puerto Rico, and then heading just northeast of the Dominican Republic here. That track, if that continues in that direction, you see where it's headed, basically up towards the easternmost Bahamas. Then the question is, where does it go? Does it head towards Florida? Does it go up towards the Carolinas? Still too early to answer that, but I would be certainly on the alert anywhere from Florida to the Carolinas. There's still a slim chance it'll come up here, but right now the odds are not favoring that, and I'll show you why in just a minute. All right, let's go back and look at those coordinates again that I skipped over briefly. 20.1 north, 67.2 west, about 125 miles northwest of San Juan. And you can see the other storm behind it, Iris. So we've got two storms out there. Hugo, of course, the more important storm. Here's the satellite movie loop. Clouds going all the way up and down the East Coast. We're going to be stuck in them for a while. There's a little frontal system that is stalled off the East Coast, and that's going to keep us into the gray stuff for a while. The nice weather's in the midsection of the country, but that's not coming again with this front here, and the winds basically due in off the ocean. That brings in lots and lots of moisture. Won't rain a lot, but it will have little drizzle and showers from time to time. You see tomorrow, that's exactly what our map depicts. So a little drizzle, cool, 60 in the city overnight, 50s north and west. Tomorrow, drizzle in the morning, developing to a period of light rain later in the day. The high only 70, so it's another cool day tomorrow. Cloudy on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm being optimistic now and calling for partly sunny skies, but we've got to watch Hugo by then. It looks like this big area of fair weather that's located up in Canada may just block Hugo from coming this way, but it's really too early to tell.
Estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars. In Puerto Rico alone, more than 28,000 people were left homeless. Puerto Rico's governor wants President Bush to declare the island a disaster area. Once again from the National Hurricane Center is Director Bob Sheets in Coral Gables, Florida. Bob, what's the latest on the storm?
Well, Deborah, it continues to move towards the northwest, and that's good news for the Turks and Caicos Islands because it is moving just to the north of that coast area here. There are hurricane warnings up here in the Turks and Caicos and the southern Bahamas. We'll have to keep those up because the hurricane is expected to turn back towards the west-northwest in the next day or two.
And still looks like it's going to hit U.S. land sometime?
Our best projections, the models that we have, indicates anywhere from South Florida all the way up through the North Carolina coast, and unfortunately, they're not in very good agreement at this time.
All right, we'll be checking back with you, Dr. Bob Sheets in Florida. Some preparations are already underway on the east coast of the U.S. At Cape Canaveral, NASA is considering whether it should roll the shuttle Atlantis off the launch pad and back into the vehicle assembly building just in case Hugo gets too close. Other news to report today, Republicans and Democrats on Capitol.
Ugly day here, 59 degrees, rain. The rain is going to get harder during the day today, so be prepared for that. And if you're on the Jersey Shore, there could be some coastal flooding. We're going to tell you about Hurricane Hugo and almost a Hurricane Iris out in the Atlantic. We'll show you a tape of the motion of Hugo over the last couple of days. This is since Sunday night. When it started and came across Guadalupe, you could see the eye quite clearly. Then it hit the northeastern corner of Puerto Rico and ends up now out in the open water, but it is not strengthening. Now, this is you can see the latest positions of both Hugo and Iris. Hugo with 105-mile-an-hour winds, now a 2 on a hurricane scale of 1 to 5. Iris is not yet a hurricane. It's got winds of 65 miles an hour. 10 more miles an hour, and that too will be a hurricane. The clouds over the East Coast have absolutely nothing to do with Hugo or Iris. But the high pressure up at the top of your screen is massive. That's partly what's pushing those clouds in from the Atlantic on us, and it's also eventually going to steer Hugo and Iris toward the East Coast. Right now, Hugo looks like it's going to be headed toward the southeast coast. Iris is moving around Hugo, which is really weird. This is very, very unusual for this part of the world. It does happen in the Pacific sometimes, and as a matter of fact, there's a technical name for it. It's called a Fujiwara effect, when one hurricane rotates around the other. It's absolutely incredible to happen in the Atlantic. Now, as for us, ugly day. Here's the forecast. Today, rain becoming heavy at times, high temperature up only to 65 degrees, wind, and coastal flooding at times of high tide in Jersey. That rain will continue tonight, diminishing the drizzle, and then finally that moisture will be pushing westward. Everything's moving backwards here, and as the high pressure from the north builds in, we may dry out toward the end of the week, steering Hugo away from us and giving us at least half-decent weather. We'll be back with more on that. It's a very unusual weather pattern here.
Hurricane.
Hurricane Hugo is that it is not as strong as it was when it hit Puerto Rico, and it's also moving away from the Dominican Republic and Haiti. This is the Dominican Republic, and here's Puerto Rico. The yellow is the track of Hugo. You can see it's clearly missing the Dominican Republic. It also looks like it wants to miss the southeastern Bahamas too, but that doesn't mean it's going to move out to sea. Now, further to the right, the red dots, hurricane or tropical storm Iris, just getting to come into our tracking map, 65-mile-an-hour winds. That is following Hugo and actually rotating around Hugo. Now, as we go back to the west here and take a look at the southeast coast, what is happening is that a big area of high pressure up over New England is going to help push both Hugo and Iris to the west toward the southeast coast, and that is going to prevent both of them most likely from going out to sea. So we're going to have to deal with the threat, at least the East Coast, somewhere in the East Coast, deal with the threat of both storms in the next several days. It may be until the end of the week before it threatens the southeast coast, and then Iris going around that. What a very strange weather pattern. We have a strange weather pattern too. We'll take a look at that. We have moisture streaming up the east coast. There's a frontal system off the coast, and you can see that band of moisture from just off of Florida all the way up on top of us. That's moving straight to the north. That is associated with a frontal system. Now the high pressure looks like it's going to push that band of moisture to the west, inland, and eventually clear us out, also eventually steering Hugo and Iris. So here's the way it looks. Here's the forecast, and today, a rainy, raw day. Temperature going nowhere, up to 65 degrees. Rain heavy at times with some coastal flooding. Tonight, some rain and drizzle with low temperatures only a few degrees lower than the highs today. And the 5-day forecast, a possibility of some showers tomorrow as we try to get that front past us to the west. And assuming the high does build in and everything works out, we'll get reasonably fair weather, but with still southeast breezes Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Now in traffic, the southbound Connecticut Turnpike.
But spare full force of Hurricane Hugo, that relentless storm could head to the United States next, but the question is where?
It was just howling. The howling wouldn't stop. Well, that's how a visitor in Puerto Rico described the arrival of Hugo. Today, the sun was shining and the hurricane had moved on, but it left behind extraordinary damage and memories that will linger. We have a report from Joe Avilar in Puerto Rico.
Thousands of people are homeless. Even people who took precautions were hit, like those who boarded their windows and found the storm took their roofs instead.
All the ceilings of the houses came off. If you can see the ones down there, all the part of it came off on the top. The trees that fell right in front of the streets, everything was covered. The people couldn't go by.
Looking around, it's hard to believe San Juan was spared Hurricane Hugo's full wrath. The National Guard has been called in to assist the cleanup. At the airport, construction crews are trying to remove the planes that were destroyed, some seeming to have been picked up and dropped at whim.
The two airplanes behind me were picked up and dropped on top of their boarding ramps. One of them's upside down. Looking at the wreckage here, it's hard to believe that airport officials hope to have this airport running again by Wednesday at 6 o'clock, but that's what they're hoping for.
As helicopter pilots surveyed the island, they reported no casualties that needed to be airlifted. Islanders are thankful, but now have years of work ahead. Joe Avilar, Channel 4 News, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Hugo has killed at least 25 people, injured more than 100, and destroyed the homes of thousands of others in the tourist islands of the Northern Caribbean.
And obviously the question is, what next for the most powerful storm in that part of the world in a decade? Al Roker is tracking the hurricane from our News 4 Weather Center. Al?
Thanks a lot, Chuck, and we've just gotten the latest coordinates on Hugo and its little sister, Tropical Storm Iris. Take a look. Here's what's going on. Hugo right now is at 23.3 north, 68.9 west. That's about 185 miles northeast of Grand Turk Island, Bahamas, moving northwest at 12 miles per hour with 105 mile per hour winds. Now, what that means is it looks like Hugo will move to the east of the Bahamas. They will get raked with some high winds and some strong, heavy rains, but it looks like they will be spared the brunt of the hurricane. But on that current track, it looks like it may be threatening parts of either northern Florida or parts of eastern Georgia. As you take a look at the satellite, or I should say the projected track right now, it'll continue to move in the northwestern direction. By late Thursday night, early Friday morning, it should be off the North Carolina coast, I should say the Georgia coast, or the northern Florida coast. So right now, that looks like that will be the place that gets the brunt of Hurricane Hugo. Will it gain strength as it gets out over the warm waters of the Atlantic? Only time will tell. We will continue to track it for you. We'll have an update coming up a little bit later from the National Hurricane Center. Chuck?
All right, Al, it doesn't hurt to point out that this storm can take any erratic turn at any time and can cut off in a completely different direction.
That's right, and in fact, the hurricane may not even hit land. This is a projected computer track, but so far, the computer has been right on the money.
Okay, thank you, Al. The big storm brought out the worst, as it turns out, in some people. In St. Thomas, there was looting.
We found only one business installing storm shutters.
We've always believed for many, many years that our nation is a blessed nation.
Blessed or not, the cruise ships will not be parked in the harbor for long. All of them are turning around to head north by tonight.
I think we're heading for Key West, hopefully.
So they've changed a few plans?
Yes, they have. Yes, they took a different direction to try to avoid the storm. And I'm glad they did.
A lot of tourists are glad to be getting out of Nassau. Flights off the island this afternoon were filled with travelers who are cutting short their Bahamian vacations.
The way the TV is predicting it, I'm really afraid from what they're saying. You know, I'd just rather be with my daughter home at this point right now.
For the islanders who stay behind, the Bahamian Red Cross here will set up emergency food and housing when and if Hugo hits.
We won't put our shutters up until it is a direct threat to New Providence.
This afternoon, the threat seemed a little more real as the rains moved in. It's a taste of things to come in the Bahamas.
The hurricane has passed through 11 Caribbean islands so far. Pat?
In Florida, they're still getting ready just in case Hugo bullies its way there later this week. And News 4's Steve Handelsman has that part of our story.
At the Opa-locka Coast Guard Air Station near Miami today, rescue and relief supplies were loaded on a military transport. The gear would be flown around Hurricane Hugo, bound for Puerto Rico, where the Coast Guard is assisting in Hugo's wake. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard faces a major dilemma in South Florida's congested waterways. Too many pleasure boats, and no place for most of them to ride out a hurricane. Marinas were quiet today, but many fear chaos if Hugo continues to head this way. One cruise ship, the Royal Caribbean Line's Starward, has taken refuge in Miami. She was bound for Puerto Rico and would have had to sail through the hurricane to get there. Other cruise ships are reported changing itineraries to avoid Hugo. So far, the shuttle Atlantis is keeping to her scheduled October 12th launch, but officials at Cape Canaveral say they're preparing to roll her back into shelter if Hugo threatens the Cape. Plans are also being finalized tonight to evacuate the large number of area retirees from beachfront and low-lying areas in Miami's Dade County and in Broward County to the north. As Hugo approaches, people are stocking up on supplies, even plywood to cover plate glass windows. But so far, to most people here, Hurricane Hugo remains something very far away on television.
And that could be a problem. It's been more than 20 years since a major hurricane struck here, so officials worry. If Hugo does come, will people take the killer storm seriously? This is Steve Handelsman, News 4, Miami.
And in the Carolinas, windows are boarded up and residents are stocking up there, too.
Is Hugo going? And we'll give you the best estimate tonight as I see it. But first in the Midtown area, the rain, as Michelle said, came down heavy at times in the Midtown area. We had upwards of 1.5 inches of rain in the city right now at 66, and ditto for Islip and Bridgeport, 65, humidity 100%, 30.17, and it is beginning to fall. All right, both storms, but let's concentrate on Hugo being blocked by that giant high-pressure area, so it will not advance to the north. That's one. By Wednesday early, here's the projected path again. Central Bahamas as it begins to move again west-northwest. It hasn't changed course. It is now Thursday, and by Thursday, that storm will be in the northern portions of the Bahamas. It is now Friday. Friday, we're projecting it to be parallel to the Florida coast, about 100 miles from Cape Canaveral. It is Friday night, Saturday, and that storm will either break one of three ways: to Florida, to the Carolina coast, or to South Carolina, Georgia. Gut estimate right now, right around Charleston, South Carolina, Friday night or Saturday. Let's see how that works out. But the frontal system is stalled. Scattered showers and thunderstorms will eventually clear out, everything moving backwards, and we'll clear it out hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. The 5-day forecast?
There's Dan. Through tomorrow as it moves over the open waters there just north of the Bahamas, maybe another 10 or 15 mile per hour winds.
And the chances that it hits the U.S. mainland, in your opinion?